The use of figurative language is all a part of literature. Writing, speaking of poetry is also a genre of literature. Welcome viewers, this is yet another episode of the Your Time Show and I am Fatima Jawara. A reminder you're still watching Better Future Productions, and today on the Your Time Show I have a renowned playwright, blogger and of course a poet, none other than ModouLamin Sowe. But before I proceed into the discussion format, I would like him to introduce himself to the viewers out there. Welcome Mr. Sowe.
Thank you very much, Fatima. I am quite delighted to be here. As you've mentioned, my name is ModouLamin Sowe, but I am well known by my pen name, ModouLamin Sowe, and I am an emerging West African writer and a scholar. It's a pleasure to be here.
Appreciated, Manako, highly appreciated. I'm coming back to that, ModouLamin Sowe. Mind telling us what the age has to do with the ModouLamin Sowe?
Thank you very much. This is a pseudonym. It's a pen name I adopted back in high school because we had three ModouLamin Sowes: ModouLamin Sowe, ModouLamin Sowe, and Modou Sowe. And we were all in the same batch, so I thought it is quite significant for identification purposes as a writer to adopt the pen name ModouLamin Sowe. The H is my father, the Al-Musaf is my mother.
Wow.
Yes.
Interesting down there. Okay, Emal, I know the viewers right now will be, okay, we know him, we are familiar with him, but then again, we want to know your bio inside.
Yeah, thank you very much. I grew up in Brikama, although I was born in Bakau, and I was raised and schooled in Brikama before I proceeded to Masul Senior Secondary School in Old Yundum, where I graduated high school, and I worked as a teacher librarian, as a drama coordinator for 3 good years before I left the country for my educational sojourn and research. So in the meantime, I established my own business where I worked. And I think these are just few things about me. Though ModouLamin Sowe is a very simple man, very down to earth, and somebody from a very poor family background who is struggling to make a living and change the lives of others through books. And as an author, I started writing when I was old enough to spell. I read everything I could find. Besides, with the near mystical sense of being, the kind of literature that I was drawn into, that I continued to be drawn to.
Okay, point. Viewers, I know right now you'll be like, what is he saying? But then this is Emal Sowe for you. He'll be speaking in coded languages also. It is literature for you, so Emal, mind continuing from down there?
Yes, so the kind of literature I was drawn into, and I continue to be drawn into, is a literature of the Western world. In fact, what compelled me to write a book at the age of 14 was that I was sent out of the classroom by my literature teacher back in grade 7 when I was in junior school. Because the book we were reading is entitled Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. So I didn't have the book, and the teacher sent everybody out of the classroom, those who couldn't afford the book. So I was like, when will Gambians start reading their books? Don't we have Gambian writers? I think I should write a book. It was a joke. I was just 14 years old in grade 7, very young. So, but sometimes it could be so realistic to see how jokes could be serious on a very determined mouth. And that joke transformed into reality. I noticed that it's beyond joke. I have to really write. It's my destiny. It's my calling, because the Bible says in John chapter 6 verse 3 that that which is born of the flesh is the flesh, and anything that is born of the spirit is also the spirit. And I am born of the spirit. To write is a calling, because the Holy Quran tells us in Surah Al-Alaq, God the Almighty says, Allazi allamal bil kalam. We taught man the use of the pen. So the use of the pen is writing. In fact, the connotation continues in the Holy Quran in Surah Al-Kalam. It's chapter 68 of the Holy Quran. God says, Nur wal kalam, by the pen and what men write. O Messenger of Allah, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you are not by the grace of your God a madman. Writers who write have great etiquette. They are people of good conduct and character. That's why they're able to preach the virtue of tolerance and peace and discipline to the outside world, especially readers. So having been sent out of the class at the age of 14, I couldn't afford that book. Anytime I go to bed, I dream that, look, I wrote a book. And this was around the riverside, the riverbank. And people I presented the book to will be crying. I'm like, hey, this should be a reality. This is not just a dream. I have to write a book. I remember the title in my dream. I could recall. Anytime I dreamt, I would write down the title. So the first title of my book is Don't Judge the Book by the Cover. Yeah, because sometimes in our society, you see some people, they're down to earth.
Yeah, I think ML will come to that, the things that your book embedded of. Oh, okay. Correct me if I'm wrong. I did heard you say you started writing way before when you started capturing what you could spell, I think. Yeah. So could that be in association to your 14-year-old age? Or could it be you started writing or practicing how to write way before 14?
Yeah, way before 14, I have been writing, but that's just writing short pieces of short stories and essays and poems. I wouldn't call that writing. It's more of doing my homeworks and exercises, and probably I didn't know my future was going to be this writer that I am. I never had any idea that I will one day be a renowned writer in my country and beyond, despite the fact that it's quite significant to contribute immensely to the socio-economic development of a country through writing. The Gambia from post-independence have witnessed series of transformation in our educational system. From post-independence, the system of education in the country mainly focused on academics, not vocational skill education. So academics is book knowledge. You go to school from kindergarten to university, they teach you how to pass exams and graduate, and you see yourself into the workforce. That's all. But there are not much, institutions here. Not much efforts have been done by the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education and Higher Education to invest in the youth, especially when it comes to vocational skill education. Writing is a skill. I nurtured at a very early age, and I jealously have to guide this talent to ensure that it benefits humanity.
I know people will be like, ML Falajile inspirational.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, because every writer will have an inspiration or somebody that, one way or the other, forced you or helped you to realize the talent of yours.
Yes, I was inspired by William Shakespeare, and that's why people find it very difficult to understand me when I speak or write. Despite, I think the fact is that maybe in speaking it's a little bit difficult to understand me, but when you read my work, it's very simple.
Okay, ML, there didn't have to go because you just made it clear to the viewers that people find it hard to understand you when talking. That is, Legi Man Mangla suggested as your former student that then we want to come down to our level. Because even one of the scholars by the name of Thick Ismail Menk said the best amongst you is the one who speaks in simple languages. Yeah. That audience have me conceptualize and gradually develop it. No matter how the message content that you give, when you just want to understand. I believe there is no essence in it. But then going by your pen, yeah, let's still go on.
Oh, that is it. If I can understand William Shakespeare, you can understand me. Very simple. Of course, Shakespeare is in Gambian. Can I say wasn't because he is no more. So basically, the kind of literature that I was drawn into, that I read, that inspired me to be an author, is what I grew up with. Okay. And that's the kind of zeal and enthusiasm that I have when it comes to writing. And despite the fact that many people understand what I write, it's just probably they make fun of me. It's just a joke, sort of. But I am somebody who writes very simply and simple, because that's the purpose of my work, to have an audience who can understand what I write. And this is why I got one of my books, The Memories of Reflection, approved by the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education to be used in upper basic schools as a supplementary reading materials. So the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education found the book useful and relevant to be read in the junior schools. That's why they approved the book at that level. So when I wrote the book, I was very, very young. I was within the reach or age group of those young people in that grade. And then still talking about my inspiration, I mentioned William Shakespeare. I should also mention, Femi Osofisant. He's a renowned Nigerian author and playwright and scholar. He inspired me so much to do what I am doing. Overall, I got inspired by the Most High, because he says in the Holy Quran, in Surah Al-Zilzal, chapter 99, he said, Bi anna rabbaka awhalaha. For that, thy Lord will give you inspiration. So the inspiration you received is from God, and I was inspired to be this author I am, to shape the destinies of other people through writing. So basically, my writing, when it is going very, very well, is a whispering from the spirits. I am compelled to put in pen to paper to write what has been whispered into my ears. And when it is not going well, it gives me great source of anxiety and depression. But of course, that motivates me to work very hard, to struggle.
Okay, we'll post on the motivation down there, because this is getting interesting and I'm not getting enough of this, but we'll go for this short break. When we're right back, we'll still continue with the show.
Hello and welcome to you viewers. I am your presenter Alaji Kedram.
Representing the interests of Gambia, because the
Welcome back, yes viewers, it's still me, Fatima Jawara, and you're still watching Better Future Productions with the same people, ModouLamin Sowe, and of course, Fatima Jawara. Welcome back from that break. ML, a reminder please, you just stopped at the point of motivation before we go for that commercial, so would mind elaborating more on that?
Sure. Motivation is very fundamental in anything one does, because, in the Gambia, we have scholars and renowned people who are inexplicably gifted, but they're not motivated. Most of them feel depressed and relaxed because there is no platform where they can showcase their talent and mobilize their productive talent and resources in nation building, because every nation relies on the strength and productive versatility of our youth in championing socio-economic and political advancement. So I got motivated by a lot of frustrations, and they serve as my motivation. A lot of obstacles I tackle, because a successful person must be able to tackle obstacles to be jubilant, to be successful. That is to be able to be human. You must be able to be human is to be wanted to be valued and respected in society. I remember when I started writing at that young age, there was no single door or office in the country I haven't gone to knocked. Hello, Kankang. Hey, this is my book. You want to check it out and show me the way. They are not interested in learning or education or reading, So that's the kind of society I happen to find myself. I was born in and grew up. So it's quite different from other societies I visited, other countries I resided and traveled to, where reading is fundamental, where, in the words of Rick Holland, the famous author and writer, the world belongs to those who read. So that's why reading is fundamental. It changes us and shapes us and makes us different human beings who are aware and very sharp. And of course, very current about, world affairs. So most of the obstacles or challenges I've faced in life has served as my motivation, having known my family background and where I come from. I have to pass all my exams and, grew up very determined and hardworking. And that's why I didn't complete high school. I was already given a job in the same school to serve as a teacher librarian, where, in fact, the library has helped me immensely, because not only as a librarian, I kept books, but I read thousands of books. And those books motivated me and inspired me enough to do more and to be able to also portray the real image of the Gambian culture and society.
Okay, very well done. Whosoever knows ML will know that ML is a bookworm. But then again, coming to what you just said about the frustrations that you had or you faced, motivated you rather. So amongst your frustrations and depressions that you had, could there be a link to that with your exile? Or?
Oh, yes. Very well. That's great. You know, I went into exile at the age of 26. This was forced exile. I had no choice. As an author and a scholar, you know, the students I taught back in Masrul Senior Secondary School, I had a drama group. And most of these students, when they graduate, they just relax completely. But while with me, I noticed their talents, their hidden potential that I have to nurture and motivate them to, of course, contribute a lot to the development of society. So I discovered that there was need to do a film where I could call all these students to come back and we do a film. Precisely, I did a movie that's entitled ModouLamin Sowe, former, of course, the title given to former president of the country, Yaya Ejeje Jammeh. So the film hasn't shown anything negative about the president. It was more of the positive things and development he's done. But in fact, we got an approval letter from the office of the president to do the premiere of the movie at the Paradise Suites Hotel. And unfortunately, the protocol officers that were assigned to work with me had messed up everything. And they had sent a bad image and misrepresentation of the film to the president, who didn't understand fully what the movie was all about. And nobody will fight with a president, especially a head of state, a dictator. Hell no, impossible. So I had to find my way to Senegal, neighboring Senegal, where I was first exiled. While in Senegal, I worked at the Lahamatan Publicis. It's a publishing company in Senegal for 6 months as an intern, where as an author in residence, I edited books and I read a lot. And I was drawn into French literature and Senegambian culture. In fact, this inspired me to write one of my short stories, you know, The Refugee and the Mosquitoes. Yeah. And subsequently, it got published by the African Writers Development Trust when I had the opportunity to reside in Nigeria for a month for a writer's residency. The Pen Africa Writers Residency was fully funded by the European Union and organized by the African Writers Development Trust, leading to my first anthology book entitled Wawiza. Wawiza is a Swahili word which means togetherness or unity. In the simple sense, it connotates the African identity, it depicts the reality, in fact, the stereotypes that are surrounding African cultures and identities.
So, Emil, could one say your going into exile was the thing that led you to be blown?
Perfect. This is no mistake, because while in the Gambia, people knew me to be that aspiring writer who was struggling to write, who's done some few things. Like I founded the Young Writers Association of the Gambia in 2012 because I noticed I had young people who were rising a clarion call, not only in fishing and farming and sports, but also literature. And these young people needed to have someone like them who can guide them, who could be their associate. So I founded the organization. Having served as the president for 3 years, I have to hand over to other young people, and my exile catapulted me into my success. It has lifted me up and to be this internationally acclaimed and widely read author from the Gambia, because it was for the first time when I was in Senegal that I happened to create my blog, The Voice of the Pen, where as an active blogger, I have been blogging so much and a lot of crazy stuff and stories that inspired my readers. And it was also what gave me the opportunity to publish my play, The Throne of the Ghost, in USA. I got published in America for my debut, and it was published by the African Books Collective in partnership with Madhouse Press in Nigeria. So my exile was both bad and good.
But then I would say the positivity outweighs the negativity.
That is quite true.
Okay, now coming back to this controversial question. Amal, the UN 75 competition that happened, poetry inclusive. I had complaints from here and there because this is a platform whereby we explore raw and hidden talents in the Gambia. And obviously we mainly focus on literature and poetry as a whole. Although we have sub-topics titles in between that we slot in business and other things in between, though it's a platform open for all. But then again, I had people saying the UN75 competition was a competition that was based on favoritism. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh yes, you stand to be corrected when you are wrong. But fortunately, you are not wrong at all. And this is not like it was based on favoritism. The UN75 poetry and painting competition was held online due to the COVID-19. We couldn't, organize the event in a grand style where inclusive everybody would have been there. For the poetry, we have received close to 500 submissions. So we needed to select the best. Let me hasten to clarify that I was not the chief judge. I wasn't there. I was just the lead consultant who happened to implement the project on behalf of the UN. The Gambia, in partnership with my office, my former office, the National Center for Arts and Culture, through the Director General. So as the lead consultant who implemented that project, I was the MC of the program when I handed over to the ministers to come make a statement and stuff like that. But the competition was judged very ambidextrously because we had experts who are experts in what they do, who came with their expertise to judge the competition very fairly. Because for the poetry, the likes of Michael Hamadi Seka, Dr. Fatou Juka Jabang, and Musa Ba, the scribbler, these are people who are very renowned. And of course, they judge this thing based on what the competition was all about, relevance to the team. You can be a very renowned poet, everybody admires you, but when it comes to the theme of a particular competition, you might not have done extremely well, because the UN75 competition was held on the theme, The Gambia We Want in 2045. What kind of Gambia do we want to see in 2045? This was because last year, 2020, marked the 75th year anniversary of the United Nations globally. And here in the Gambia, it was marked by the painting and poetry competition. So most of the young people who submitted their 2 minutes online spoken word poetry video did justice to the topic, but the judges felt those who emerged winners were those who deserve the competition more than those who didn't actually win. But there was no loser in the competition because all of them were certified and they were given prizes, not just attractive prizes, but even certificate of participation by the UN that was signed by the country representative of the resident coordinator of the UN, High Excellency Madam Serafine Wakana, and the Director General of the National Center for Arts and Culture, Mr. Hassum Sise. Of course, the Honorable Minister of Tourism and Culture, Honorable Ahmad N.K. Ba.
Okay, and also, where would you rank yourself amongst the writers in the Gambia?
In the Gambia, honestly speaking, I am known outside the Gambia more than in my own country.
Are you the best writer?
No, I'm not the best in what I do.
Why aren't you? Because I heard you're the first Gambian author to publish his work via audio mark, correct?
In the words of ST, I'm Gambian's numero 0. So I'm number 0 of the Gambia. But I don't see myself as the best author. To me, what I do is just a passion, and I think anybody else can do it. I don't take part in competitions. I am not involved in any competition of any kind. I don't see myself as the best. I'm just a very humble man, down to earth, who is struggling to contribute to the development of society. And most of what I do is not being done by anyone in the Gambia, because I'm the first Gambian author to have published globally to the stage of being an African writer and published with the African Writers Development Trust. Not only that, I'm the first Gambian author to have an audiobook. From post-independence to now, we have thousands of Gambian writers, from both the elders and the young writers, but none of them have had an audiobook. This audiobook, I made it myself because I studied library and information. So as an information literate, I use my knowledge to come up with something. I thought, in the information-saturated world, the age of science and technology, things change. People don't have time to read. Who cares if you write a book of 1 million pages? We don't have time to read that. So I thought, as time changes, I should also change with time. And that's why I constantly visit the Gambia National Library, Timbuktu Bookshop. I will see Gambian books that gather dust there. Nobody buys them. Nobody cares to even read them. So what will I do to motivate Gambians to read and write, to be inspired. I thought of coming up with this creative project of, having the Gambia's first audiobook. And when it was out, wow, it was blown out of expectations. And most of the elders and authors feel like they could collaborate with me. I said, feel free if you want me to help you do the same thing for your book. But I will definitely like to say that it shouldn't stop with me. I expect more Gambian authors to also come up with audiobooks, because these are things you can listen to in your office, in your car, when you're driving, or anywhere. You just listen to it, very easy, because it's easier compared to you want to hold a book of 300 pages, you read it. My brother, I don't tell them. You didn't have a lot to do, so you wouldn't have the opportunity to read all that.
Yeah, and my final question to you, Emil, will be, okay, though you said you're humble, but then from rumors, they're mouthpiece at the moment, some say Emil, usually he always wants to be that center of attention.
Yeah.
So mind clearing that for the viewers, and then give us your final words, because we are running out of time.
All right, thank you very much, Fatima. I'm delighted. This last question is really important. Yeah, I think the title of my first book answers my question, or your question, because don't judge the book by the cover, tells everything. Critics are those who actually don't know the road, and they don't even know how to drive to the place. So there will always be people who will talk when it comes to anything you do. That is greatness, because it is a very rough road that leads to the heights of greatness. The late Nobel laureate, famous African writer Chinua Achebe, he said, if you don't like my story, you write your own. So people who don't like my story, they don't write their own, they're still talking. So let them talk, but I will continue doing the good work I am known for. Those who know me know actually that ModouLamin is a very humble young man who has shaped the careers of thousands of young people who are now celebrated spoken word poets and writers in the Gambia that people respect. They pass through my hands. They know me very well. They know exactly the kind of person I am. Despite the fact that if you are in front, there is always a lot of noise behind, because people want to say, okay, you want to be the center of attention to everything like you've just said, but that's not me. Like I said, I'm not Gambia's best writer. I will never take that title. People who can do something are just humble, and people might give them title, but they don't call themselves, I am Gambia's ink, I am Gambia's pamphlet.
But what if you're the best, and then yet still you claim not to be the best, but you're doing your best?
That will make you the best.
Okay, then. Viewers will hold it right there. We are at the end of the show, and I will thank Emil Sowe for accepting my invitation at a short notice till we come your way next. Bye for now.